Welcome in. If you're joining us today, you are probably feeling it.
Oh, yeah.
The daily news cycle is it's an absolute avalanche right now.
Completely overwhelming.
Especially when it comes to this sudden, massive spike in global energy news. And, you want to cut through the noise, skip the talking heads, and just understand what is actually happening out there.
Right.
And more importantly, how it's actually going to impact you.
Exactly.
That is what we do here. So for this deep dive, our mission is to examine a highly detailed dispatch we pulled from the KULT Patreon page.
It's a really thorough write-up.
It is. The dispatch is titled, quote, "Analysts warn that recovery from the Iran-Iraq war could take months even if the conflict ends soon."
A very sobering title.
Yeah, very. Now, just to clarify this scope, based on the actual text of this dispatch, we are looking at the severe global energy disruption caused by the current U.S.-Israeli-Iran war.
And this is a sprawling, incredibly complex situation.
It really is.
It really is.
Yeah.
And to truly understand it, we have to grasp the sheer scale of the disruption. Like, energy experts are now openly calling this the most severe supply disruption since the 1970s oil embargo.
The 1970s, wow.
We need to frame the magnitude of this event properly, because the most crucial takeaway from our source material today is this: even if a peace treaty were signed this very second thing,
Right.
the financial and logistical shockwaves are going to take weeks, if not months, to fully resolve.
So it's not a quick fix.
Not at all. The damage to the global system is already baked in.
And the timeline here is moving incredibly fast. Let's lay out the basic facts from the KULT write-up so you have the ground truth. The conflict began with coordinated attacks on February 28.
Right.
And as of today, Sunday, March 8th, 2026, we are in the 9th day.
Just day 9?
Day 9. And in just over a week, roughly 20% of the world's crude oil and natural gas supply has been effectively cut off.
This is staggering.
20%, just gone from the global market.
Yeah.
To visualize this bottleneck, you have to look at the Strait of Hormuz. It is the world's most critical energy choke point.
The biggest bottleneck there is.
Yeah, imagine the most important highway in the entire world for energy, and suddenly, somebody just poured concrete over all the lanes.
What's fascinating here is that the blockade isn't just about the physical danger of Iranian attacks on ships.
Okay.
Though obviously that is the immediate trigger.
Right, the drones and missiles.
Exactly. A multi-million-dollar warship might be able to protect a commercial tanker from a drone, but it cannot protect it from a canceled insurance policy.
Ah.
Paperwork, not just missiles, is what actually stopped global trade today. Paperwork. The dispatch notes that major marine insurers have entirely canceled war risk insurance for vessels in that area.
Wait, so even if a massive shipping company wanted to just risk it and brave the strait to deliver their cargo,
They can't.
they legally can't without that coverage.
Precisely. It's the exact opposite of how you might think the high seas operate.
Yeah, you picture rogue captains just pushing through.
Right, but you simply cannot operate a massive commercial asset carrying hundreds of millions of dollars in crude oil without coverage.
Makes sense.
The banks financing these ships, the corporate boards, the liability frameworks, they all absolutely require valid insurance.
So no insurance, no movement.
When the war risk coverage evaporates, the legal permission to move evaporates with it.
Wow.
So you have this incredibly striking image described in the data. More than 150 huge tankers are currently anchored just outside the waterway, totally paralyzed.
150.
Yeah. They are just sitting there in the water, fully loaded or waiting to load, unable to move a single inch forward.
That visual of 150 massive ships just wobbling in the water, completely stuck because of a giant red stamp on a piece of paper in an office somewhere in London, it really puts the scale of the paralysis into perspective.
It's all connected.
And I know we're heavily focused on oil right now, but what about natural gas? Because the dispatch mentioned Qatar.
Yes, Qatar.
How do they factor into this massive bottleneck?
Well, Qatar is a giant in this space. They produce roughly 20% of the global liquid natural gas supply, or LNG.
Huge player.
Massive. But recent Iranian drone strikes hit their Ras Laffan facility.
Oh, right.
And because of that damage and the surrounding threat, Qatar was forced to declare force majeure on its gas exports.
I see that term pop up in the news every time there's a disaster, but for someone who isn't a contract lawyer, what does force majeure actually mean in this context?
It translates roughly to superior force.
Okay.
It's a massive legal declaration that essentially means Unpredictable, unavoidable circumstances like an act of God or an act of war have occurred that physically prevent a company from fulfilling their contracts.
So it's a legal shield.
Exactly. It legally shields Qatar from liability for not delivering the billions of dollars of gas they promised to their buyers.
Got it.
And the timeline to fix this specific issue is incredibly sobering. The source cites Reuters reporting that once conditions are safe, meaning once the area is totally secure from military threats.
Right, which who knows when that will be.
Exactly. But once it is safe, it will take at least 2 weeks simply to restart the liquefaction process.
2 weeks just to restart.
Yes. And then it takes an additional 2 weeks just to reach full capacity.
Hold on, 4 weeks just to get back to normal after the fighting stops?
Yeah.
What actually is the liquefaction process? Like, why does it take half a month just to turn the machines back on?
Well, think about what LNG actually is. You are taking natural gas and cooling it down to about minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit.
That is absurdly cold.
It is. And at that extreme temperature, the gas turns into a liquid and shrinks in volume by about 600 times.
Wow.
It's like compressing a giant beach ball down to the size of a ping pong ball so you can fit massive amounts of it onto a specialized ship.
Okay, that makes sense. But why the massive delay in restarting it?
Because you are dealing with cryogenic temperatures and highly volatile materials.
Ah.
If a facility takes damage from a drone strike, or even if it's just shut down abruptly in an emergency, you can't just flip a giant breaker switch to turn it back on.
It's not a light switch.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Engineers have to inspect miles of specialized piping for microfractures.
Because of the cold.
Right. If you introduce minus 260-degree fluids into a compromised pipe, it can catastrophically fail.
Oh, wow.
The system has to be slowly, painstakingly brought back online, pressure tested, and cooled down in stages. It is a highly sensitive physics problem, not just a simple logistical one.
Okay, let's unpack this. So we've got 150 ships basically turned into floating parking lots.
Floating parking lots, yeah.
And natural gas facilities looking at a month-long reboot.
At best.
Right, at best. But what happens to the oil that's still being pumped out of the ground while those ships are stuck?
Oh, that's the big issue.
Because it has to go somewhere, right?
It goes into regional storage tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the dominoes really start to fall. The mechanics of oil production are crucial to understand here. Like we said about gas, oil fields are also not like a light switch. You cannot just turn the tap off when the ship stops moving and then turn it back on when the water is clear.
Right.
The source highlights insights from Dan Stroyven, the head of oil research at Goldman Sachs, who was discussing this exact crisis on the firm's podcast.
Okay, what did he say?
He pointed out that the global market has already priced in about 4 weeks of disruption.
4 weeks. But the real danger, according to the Goldman Sachs analysis, comes if the situation stretches beyond that 4-week window.
Yes.
What happens at week 5?
That is when regional storage physically fills up.
Oh.
Because the ships aren't moving the product out, the oil being pumped out of the ground is filling up massive terrestrial storage tanks.
And they have limits.
Hard physical limits.
Yeah.
Once storage is completely full to the brim, the entire system backs up like a clogged drain.
Yeah.
The pressure travels all the way back to the wellhead, and production is forced to halt. Stroyven warns that if this happens, global prices may have to climb into triple-digit territory.
Triple-digit territory, meaning over $100 a barrel for crude.
Exactly.
And the KULT write-up specifically mentions that this price spike would happen to trigger, quote, demand destruction.
Demand destruction, yes.
Can you explain what that economic concept actually looks like for the listener?
Yeah, so demand destruction isn't a gentle, natural decline in people buying something.
It's not just skipping a road trip.
No, it is an aggressive, forced breaking point. It's an economic term for when a product becomes so punishingly expensive that a significant portion of the consumer base simply stops buying it or drastically changes their lifestyle because they literally can no longer afford it.
That's brutal.
It is. The price of oil shoots up so high that people cancel vacations, trucking companies go bankrupt, and factories shut down because the cost of fuel makes their business impossible.
So it breaks the economy.
The price goes up until the demand is violently crushed down to match the severely limited supply.
That is a terrifying prospect for the global economy.
Truly.
It's not people choosing to drive less, it's people being financially blocked from driving at all.
Forced out of the market.
And there is a real ticking clock on this scenario. Bringing in another perspective from the Dispatch, analysts at JP Morgan are openly warning about a potential downturn in the market, and they lay out some very specific, urgent timelines.
Yes, the clock is ticking loudly.
If the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked, Iraqi and Kuwaiti crude production could begin to shut down with days.
Days.
Days. That would potentially remove millions of barrels per day from the global supply almost instantly.
And looking slightly further out, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates face their own storage capacity limits in approximately 20 days.
Just under 3 weeks.
Right. If the blockage lasts 20 more days, those nations, the absolute heavyweights of global oil production, would be forced to halt their own production because there would physically be nowhere on land left to put the oil.
Which brings us back to that light switch analogy. Why can't they just shut the wells down for a few weeks and turn them back on when the ships finally arrive?
Because of the physics of the Earth itself.
Okay.
An oil reservoir is essentially porous rock deep underground, holding fluid under massive natural pressure.
Right.
When a well is actively flowing, that pressure is managed. But if you suddenly stop the flow, what the industry calls shutting in a well, the dynamics underground change drastically.
How so?
Depending on the geology, sand and sediment can collapse into the wellbore. Water can seep into the oil zone, changing the pressure permanently. Wax or asphalt-like substances can actually solidify in the pipes as they cool down.
So it's literally like a clogged artery.
That is a very accurate way to picture it. The process of restarting an oil field varies wildly depending on the type of field and how abruptly it was shut down.
So some are easier than others.
Sure, some newer, highly pressurized wells might recover quickly, but others, especially older wells, require extensive, time-consuming interventions.
Like what?
They might need chemical treatments or completely new drilling equipment brought in just to clear the blockages and get the oil flowing again safely.
So it's a massive operation.
Huge. If Saudi Arabia and the UAE have to shut everything down in 20 days, the restart process alone will prolong the global energy crisis long after any peace treaty is signed.
So what does this all mean? We've talked about marine insurance, global choke points, and the underground physics of wellhead pressure. Let's bring these massive global logistics directly to your wallet because the price shocks are already here.
They absolutely are.
And you're going to feel them immediately.
Yeah.
NBC News reported that yesterday, March 7, the national average price for a gallon of gasoline hit $3.41.
Wow.
That is a staggering 43-cent jump in a single week.
And all the data indicates it is likely not stopping there.
No.
Patrick DeHaan, an analyst at GasBuddy who is cited in the source material, warned that the average price could approach $3.50 or more in the very near future.
To help you track this yourself as the news develops, there's a really memorable rule of thumb shared in the dispatch.
Oh yeah, this is great metric.
Tom Cloza of Gulf Oil told Axios a formula you can use. That's the kind of terrible math trick you never want to have to use in your head at the pump, but it's incredibly useful for seeing what's coming.
It's a very helpful metric for the average consumer to gauge the lag between the stock market and the gas station.
Right, how's it work?
Cloza says that, as a general rule, every $1 increase per barrel of crude oil adds approximately 2.5 cents to the price of a gallon of gasoline.
Okay, 2.5 cents.
So if you are watching the news and you see crude oil jump by $10 a barrel because of a new development in the Strait.
Which happens fast.
Very fast. You can expect to see roughly a 25-cent increase at your local pump shortly after.
That math adds up incredibly fast.
That really does.
Especially if we hit that triple-digit territory Goldman Sachs is worrying about.
Yeah.
Now, you take that 25-cent jump at the pump and you multiply it across millions of drivers.
Yeah.
Whenever energy prices spike like this, it immediately turns into a political football. We're not here to take a side on the politics, obviously.
No, strictly neutral here. Just looking at the data.
Exactly. We just want to look at the raw math the White House is currently sweating over heading into the 2026 midterms, purely based on the analysis presented in the KULT dispatch.
It is a critical component of the story. The dispatch states that this compounding crisis represents a rapidly growing political problem for President Trump.
Because it hits voters everywhere.
Exactly. You have a combination of sudden economic pain for consumers and a military conflict abroad.
And to give you the exact numbers from the source, there is a recent Reuters Ipsos poll regarding the public's view of the military action.
What do the numbers say?
The polling data shows that only 27% of Americans approve of the military action in Iran.
27%.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a solid majority, 56% of respondents, say the president is too willing to use military force.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the dispatch outlines how White House advisors are actively calculating the political threat of those polling numbers when combined with the economic reality of the gas pump.
It's a tough equation for them.
Very tough. They are analyzing how rising fuel prices, coupled with prolonged military involvement that a majority of the public is skeptical of, could severely erode voter support.
And the specific concern highlighted in the text is regarding competitive House districts.
Right, the midterms.
Republicans currently hold a narrow majority in the House. The administration is doing the math on how a 43-cent jump at the pump in a single week, with the potential for much more, plays out in those hyper-competitive, tight races where every single vote counts.
And this raises an important question about duration, which is why the timeline is the ultimate metric everyone from Wall Street to Washington is watching.
Because if it's over tomorrow, they might be okay.
Right. But the administration has indicated internally that the operation could last more than 4 to 5 weeks.
4 to 5 weeks.
That projection, 4 to 5 weeks, is the key variable. As the dispatch notes, energy markets are watching that specific timeline incredibly closely.
Because of the Goldman Sachs projection?
Exactly. If you remember Dane Striven from earlier, the market has priced in 4 weeks of disruption.
Right.
If the White House timeline bleeds into week 5 or week 6, that is when we cross the threshold.
When the tanks get full.
That is when storage tanks overflow, wellheads shut down, and prices continue to rise into that devastating demand destruction territory we discussed.
It all comes back to the calendar.
The clock is ticking.
Every single day this continues. The terrestrial storage tanks get fuller, the potential restart timeline gets exponentially longer, and the pressure on your wallet at the pump increases.
It's compounding daily.
To wrap up the key takeaways from today's deep dive, we are looking at a 9-day conflict that has effectively frozen 20% of the global energy supply.
Massive disruption.
You have 150 massive tankers turned into floating parking lots, caught in an administrative and physical bottleneck. Natural gas facilities are looking at a month-long reboot process. Gas prices are surging rapidly, and with the 2026 midterms approaching, the political clock is ticking just as loudly as the economic one.
It's a tremendous amount of cascading information to process, but I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
Let's hear it.
Building on what we've learned today about the immense hidden complexities of restarting oil fields and the sudden, silent cancellation of war risk insurance, consider the hidden fragility of our modern, hyper-connected world.
That fragility, yeah.
We've just seen how a localized conflict can immediately threaten to unravel decades of finely tuned global logistics. Think about those 150 massive ships helplessly floating out there right now, paralyzed not just by the physical danger of drones, but because of a lack of paperwork in London and a lack of physical storage limits halfway across the world.
Stuck on a technicality, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If our global energy grid is this susceptible to a sudden administrative and physical bottleneck, how vulnerable are the other just-in-time supply chain systems we rely on every single day for our food, our medicine, and our technology?
That is a phenomenal question, and definitely something that is going to stick with you the next time you are at the gas station or the grocery store.
It really gives you a new perspective on how delicate the whole system is.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We love your curiosity. We love that you want to truly understand the mechanics and the physics behind the headlines, and we can't wait to explore the next topic with you. Stay curious, and we will catch you next time.